Have you ever felt that really specific kind of exhaustion that comes from just looking at someone? Yeah, we're all told eye contact is basically currency. It's supposed to signal confidence, honesty, respect. But what if for a whole lot of us it doesn't feel like a connection at all? What if it feels more like an interrogation, or even a threat? We're going to dig into what psychology is telling us because for so many people, this isn't some social flaw. It's actually a deeply wired survival skill.
And yeah, that feeling is exactly what we're going to unpack. It's a feeling that so often goes unspoken, and it leaves people thinking they're just, awkward or weird or antisocial. But the truth is, this exhaustion is absolutely real. It's driven by our neurology. And honestly, it tells a pretty fascinating story about how our brain learns to keep us safe. So this brings us to the core of the problem, right? This huge gap between what society expects from us when we make eye contact and what is actually happening inside our heads. We get caught up in what you could call the performance of looking.
And this slide just nails that disconnect. On the one hand, you have the cultural script, the simple, clean rules we're all taught about how to be a person in the world. But on the other hand, you have the internal reality for so many of us, this feeling of being under a microscope, where every single move, every flicker of your gaze is being judged. It feels like a performance, but you don't have a script and you can't even see the audience.
Okay, and this is so important. We have been framing this problem completely wrong. This is not about needing to try harder or learn some new social trick. The real issue is that we've been taught to treat a deeply biological, often subconscious response as if it's a conscious, deliberate performance. And that fundamental misunderstanding, well, that's where all the anxiety comes from. So, to really get why this happens, we need to look at what's going on inside the brain. For a lot of people, any social interaction, but especially eye contact, kicks the brain into a state of high alert. And here's the key term for that: hypervigilance. You can think of it as the brain being stuck in scan mode. Instead of being relaxed and present, part of your brain is actively searching the environment for subtle cues, for potential threats. And this is usually a habit that gets learned from past experiences, where being seen, and I mean really seen, wasn't always safe. So what's it scanning for? Well, everything. It's not just looking at a face, it's tracking subtle shifts in tone of voice, tiny pauses in conversation, changes in posture. Psychology shows us that people who grew up with inconsistent emotional support basically became experts at reading these micro signals because their safety and their well-being often depended on it. Your brain is running a constant diagnostic on everyone around you. And this right here, this quote, gets to the very root of it. Research on early life stress shows that if your childhood environment was unpredictable, your nervous system adapts to that, so relaxation doesn't feel safe, because historically, calm was just the quiet before the storm. Even in a perfectly safe, friendly conversation, a part of your brain is always on guard. Now, let's talk about how this all adds up, because maintaining this constant state of high alert, it's not free. It comes with a massive cognitive cost. This is the question we started with, right? And now we can finally answer it. That exhaustion isn't in your imagination. It is the totally predictable result of a brain that is working in complete overdrive. Get this, over 1,000. Psychological research suggests that's roughly the number of data points, we're talking tone, pace, body language, emotional undertones, that a hypervigilant brain might be processing all at once. It's not a conversation at that point. It's a massive data analysis project happening in real time. So let's break that down. First, you're not just hearing emotions, you're analyzing them deeply. Second, your brain becomes this highly tuned pattern recognition machine, and it's constantly flagging anything that doesn't quite add up. And third, the sheer volume of all this data just becomes overwhelming. There's simply too much information to process and, at the same time, maintain that performance of steady eye contact. So, when you look away, it is not you being rude. It's your brain being smart. It's exercising what some psychologists call selective discipline. It's strategically cutting off the most intense stream of data, the visual one, so it can free up some brain power to actually process the words being spoken. Looking away is often how you listen better. And this changes everything, doesn't it? It reframes the entire behavior. Looking away isn't a social failure. It is a deeply ingrained adaptive reflex. This is such a powerful way to think about it. We've all seen someone laugh at a really serious or sad moment, and it feels inappropriate. But what psychology tells us is that's often an involuntary stress response. The brain can't handle the intensity, so it just defaults to an automatic release. Well, averting your gaze works in the exact same way. And you can see it right here, side by side. Both of these things are the brain's release valve. When the tension or the sensory input gets too high, the nervous system needs an exit ramp, fast. One releases emotional energy, the other cuts off overwhelming data. It's the same exact function, just a different expression. So the crucial point here is that this reflex is all about self-regulation. It is your nervous system's fastest way to hit a little mini reboot button. It lets you regain your balance and actually stay present in the conversation, even if your eyes aren't locked on target. It's about preservation, not disrespect.
And this brings us to what might be the most important reframe of all. It's time to stop seeing this as a weakness and start understanding it for what it is, a quiet strength.
I want you to just let that sink in for a second. You are not broken. Your brain is not flawed. It is simply calibrated perfectly and efficiently for an environment that demanded a higher level of awareness. It is an adaptation, not a defect.
And this is where that special calibration comes from. Developmental psychology shows us that for kids who had to grow up too fast, who had to manage adult emotions or deal with unpredictable situations, they learned these lessons in a different order. Their nervous system prioritized strength and responsibility because softness and safety just weren't always on the table.
You know, the flip side of this exhausting hypervigilance is a set of incredible strengths. This same wiring gives you deep empathy, an almost psychic ability to sense emotional shifts in a room, and a really powerful protective instinct. You learned how to read the room because you had to, and now it's a kind of superpower, even if it does drain your battery. So here is the bottom line. Stop fighting yourself. You don't need to fake a level of comfort that just isn't authentic to you. The goal isn't to perform confidence. The goal is simply to acknowledge, with a little compassion, that your brain is doing exactly what it learned it needed to do to keep you safe in a world that didn't always feel that way.
And I want to leave you with this final thought. What if we just reframe this whole thing completely? What if a diverted gaze isn't a sign that someone is checked out, but proof that they are so checked in, so deeply processing everything around them, that they just need a second to manage the intensity? Maybe it's not an absence of presence at all, but a sign of a very quiet, very profound, and resilient kind of strength.